Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Regan Maroc. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar, which will be centered around extreme weather and the importance of preventative maintenance. I am thrilled to be joined today by my fellow professionals in the industry. Everyone will bring a different strength and education depending on their sect of this topic. So with that, today we have Lorenzo Cardenas from USI Insurance. We have Avi Treisen, managing partner from Godey DuBose Cross PLLC. We have Sinisa Kolar, executive vice president from the Falcon Group, and our own Doug Weinstein, vice president of operations for ACAM. So with that, I would like to give everyone an opportunity to share a little bit about themselves. We'll go around the table this way. Sinisa, if you'd like to start off, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Sinisa Kolar. I'm the principal of the Falcon Group. Falcon Group is the engineering company consulting and forensic engineers, and our scope of services and the work we do is related to condominiums and HOAs and helping buildings to have proper maintenance and repairs.
Thank you, Sinisa. Avi?
Sure, thank you. Avi Treisen, my law firm is Godey DuBose Cross. We specialize in homeowner and condominium association representation. I've been practicing law for almost 10 years now, or up to 15 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Avi. Lorenzo?
Lorenzo Cardenas with USI Insurance Services. We specialize in condo and HOA risk management, dealing with everyday insurance needs, and happy to be here with the rest of you.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Reagan, for having us. My name is Doug Weinstein. I'm vice president of operations. My role at ACAM, one of South Florida's leading property management firms, is to assist our clients in both capital projects, physical operation of their plants, and also preventive maintenance. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Okay, so let's get into the program. Heat season is something that has been in the works for a while. Last November, Mayor Daniella Levine Cava announced that Miami-Dade would officially establish a heat season from May 1 through October 31st. This coincidentally coincides with hurricane season. And the idea is to put a spotlight on the importance of preparation and preventative maintenance for South Florida associations. Jane Gilbert was recently appointed as the first chief heat officer, the first of its kind as well, and she is hard at work to assist on this initiative. With that, we will get into the main things that we'd like to cover today. The first question that really comes up is, what are the board's duties with respect to repair, maintenance, and replacement with the common elements of the community? And what I'd like to do is, there's two elements to this. One is on the engineering side, the start of the building, the way the building is built, and then the continuous preventative maintenance that will go along with it. So, Sinisa, if it's okay, I'd like to start with you. If you could talk a little bit about, how you see extreme weather affecting the physical plant, the infrastructure, and what should be maybe done moving forward with respect to when they build new buildings.
Sure, thank you very much. So, obviously, South Florida region is specific for a number of reasons. Obviously, the nice weather that we have is very attractive to a lot of people, but from a perspective of maintenance and engineering, the weather we have in Florida is very challenging. The constant radiation from sun, UV, the presence of moisture and salt in the air very adversely affects the properties we have. From a structural perspective, the properties are affected, in high humidity, high moisture, and high presence of salts in the air, they affect the concrete structures through a corrosion of reinforcement and potential deficiencies and defects that happen as a result of that. The sun and the temperature obviously affect the energy efficiency systems of our buildings, where we have a heat radiation, which now makes us work hard at providing better insulation for the building, better cooling systems and things like that, which we have to pay attention, not just on the walls, which we all kind of know, windows and all that, but also on the roofs, where we have to work towards better insulation systems on the roofs. Ultimately, the problem with being in a coastal region and the issue with rising waters is something that is very closely monitored, especially recently, and especially in light of the current unfortunate collapse of the Champlain Tower South structure. There are a lot of theories out there, and obviously we still don't know what has caused it. But one of the issues that have been discussed very actively recently is the potential impact of rising waters and mixture and higher presence of salt water in areas where we didn't have it before. So those are the things that we have to now start paying attention, whether we have new buildings coming on or existing buildings, as to what are the steps we need to take to protect our properties.
Thank you, Shanisha. And then Doug, I'd like to jump over to you, and obviously you're in charge of operations. Maybe you could discuss a little bit some of the initiatives that are going into place with regards to systems and whatnot. Obviously, you're talking about ACAM, but what's going on with most management companies at this point?
Okay, thank you. Well, as Shanisha said, they're really, and if you really look at it more globally, there isn't an area of a building that's not affected by our climate. And that could mean anything from, as Shanisha very pointedly out, was we are in the worst corrosive environment for a building in the world, which is salt. So that attacks it from a chemical standpoint. But as today's discussion is centering a little more on the heat end of the spectrum, there's many systems in a building that are affected by what we call ambient temperatures. I'll give a great example of that is elevators. One of the things that people don't realize, the advent of modern elevators, where we went from mechanical controllers to computerized controllers, basically also made it a little bit challenging in that they operate at a certain ambient temperature. If that ambient temperature goes below or above their set points, it can cause damage to these very complicated controllers, as well as stop the machinery from running. So one of the things that we look at when we talk with our clients is to make sure they have adequate climate control in places like their elevator motor rooms. Air conditioning now has to be put in. We also advise that to have spare backups, backup fans, things like that. But it also can affect other equipment, other MEP equipment, anything from high ambient temperatures in your electric switchgear room to pump RTU units on the roof being battered by sun to the roof itself. There are certain things that we can do to mitigate on roofs. There's aluminized reflective coatings depending upon your roof system. So we look at all of that when we develop these climate-related preventative maintenance. And it even goes also into the owner's individual apartments. In South Florida, which is a little unique, we have a large, what we call snowbird population. And one of the things that we advise residents in our building, if they are going to be leaving their apartments or for a long extended period of time for the season, as we say, is that to make sure that your apartment stays climate controlled. You just can't leave for 3 months in the middle of August and expect, with your air conditioning off, and expect you to come back to a great apartment. It's very important. It's just as important from the building's point of view to make sure that your interior apartments are also protected against the ambient and the high levels of heat we have. And you should check with your building management, because a lot of times they will issue, please leave your air conditioners set at a certain point, because as Denise has said, it's also not just heat, it's also humidity. And there, if it's not controlled, begets environmental hazards such as mold. So we look at it from both an inside, outside, and each individual unit when we go through and we develop these programs that reflect environmental and heat concerns.
Thank you very much, Doug. Let's switch gears now to the insurance and legal side of this topic. Lorenzo, I understand obviously the market is really tough right now. What I've been told is that, before, if you showed great preventative maintenance and you did all your due diligence, you were going to get preferred rates. But that's changed a little now, right? Now that might get you insurance. So if you could talk a little bit about that and talk about how the insurance process has changed as far as what they're looking for to issue insurance.
Yes. So, as Regan was stating, the insurance market is in a bit of a crisis right now. We've lost several carriers throughout the year, and then Champlain Towers also caused a damper in what the carriers have been requesting. Historically, they never requested the 40 or 50-year certification. They just wanted to know how it was going. Even if it wasn't completed at the time that was requested or by when it was needed, as long as you were doing work to strive towards it, you were okay. Now you can't even find coverage at times if you can't show that the work has been completed. So it's another requirement that wasn't really in place before, but now it's something that's, come a long way. It's even gotten to the point where it affects the general liability, right? So if you're kicking the can down the road and you're not doing the 40 and 50-year certification, it causes an issue for coverage, to the point where some geo carriers and even property carriers are requesting 12 months of the board minutes, the last 12 months. So it's become really strict. If you're not doing if you're kicking the can down the road, you're probably going to have a really hard time finding coverage. And if you do find coverage, it's going to be very, very limited coverage.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Avi, from the perspective, something in management that we're noticing is a lot of board members are asking agents about their D&O policies and increasing them. Obviously, with what happened at Champlain Towers, it makes sense. What is your take on a board member's responsibility as pertains to preventative maintenance? What's their liability? What are you seeing out there on the legal side of things?
Sure. For those of you who don't know, D&O insurance stands for directors and officers coverage, and that protects all the board members in the event some sort of issue arises while they are serving on the board, as long as they're not doing anything bad, like stealing money from the association, or they're not doing anything grossly negligent that otherwise they would have, acting as a prudent human being should act. So a lot of this, and part of our discussion is talking about heat, part of our discussion is talking about the tragedy in Surfside, and the associations, the board's responsibility and their duties are to follow through to repair, maintenance, do the necessary repairs, the necessary maintenance, and the necessary replacements as they come due in the normal course of life of those particular life items, whether it's elevators, whether it's the roof, whether it's an air cooler or an air condenser. Those things need to be actively maintained by the association. If the board is not doing their job, if they are not actively engaging an engineer to come onto the property, depending on the size of the building, once every 3 years, to inspect the building, check out the life expectancies of the remaining components that are consequential for the association in the building to continue to operate and to function, whether it's a parking garage, whether it's the balconies, whether it's a concrete, maybe it's sprawling. The board has a duty to make sure these things are not going into a state of disrepair. And perhaps if the board at Surfside were doing those things, the tragedy would not have happened. Again, we don't know what happened, so we can't speculate. But if your building does have concrete sprawling, if it does have balconies that look like they're about to fall off because they're just not properly affixed to the building, these are things that are clearly issues that you need to remedy. And those are easy to spot. But it's also about focusing on the things that are not easy to spot. And that's what regular care, maintenance, and prevention, and having the correct inspections from whether it's an engineer, whether it's a contractor, so that you know the cards that you're playing with, the field that you're playing with, to make sure that you're on top of what's going on and you're ahead of any potential issues that can happen.
Thank you, Avi. And along those lines, I mean, let's say an association brings in Sanisha. He says, looks at the structure, maybe he gives the advice that needs a new roof. Insurance is coming in saying, if you don't replace that roof, you're not getting insurance. The building goes out to find a roofing contractor, but they all say we don't have supplies, we can't do it in time. What are you advising your clients in those instances? Because, obviously the building needs insurance, people can't close on units. If it's like, have you seen that?
Yes, so there's clearly an issue now with building materials and labor. They are skyrocketing, 30-40% increases in some instances. And so some associations can't afford the work that needs to be done, or they can't find the right financing partner from a lending institution for them to help get a special assessment passed so they can stretch the payments out over 5, 10, or 15 years, as the case may be. In those instances, I've tried to work with the association to find a roofer who can at least do the minimum work that needs to be done, a patch job over the work that's there, not a patch job so that, we're just going to satisfy the insurance broker so that we can get our insurance for the next 2 days or 2 weeks or 2 months, but really a patch job that will get you through a specific period of time so that from now until the period of time where that patch job, the life expectancy will end, you will then be able to raise the funds, work with that particular vendor, and get that repair completed once that life expectancy ends of that repair job or patch job that you completed.
Yeah, ultimately the goal is to be proactive, right? But in certain situations with everything going on now with COVID, supply has been down, and it's been very difficult for some of these roofers to get the work done. So what we've been able to do with some of our clients who are running into this is show the track record of what's been affected to try to do whatever we can to help them find coverage. Because ultimately, our job as the agent is to tell the story, right? And the best story possible for the association, showing that they've been doing what's best to this point, and it's kind of out of their control, has helped out tremendously in some of these cases.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Shanisha, with regard to that, obviously, as the engineer, you're not thrilled with the patch job, but this is kind of, if that's the only option, right? I mean, is there alternatives that maybe you recommend, or is that the best that we have at this point?
Well, I don't like to generalize things, and the fact is that most of the time there are options. How viable those options are, both from a financial time frame or at the end the inconvenience it's going to cause to the association is to be determined case on case basis. The thing is this: when it comes to the engineering, a part of the issue is what the engineer wants, but the completely separate set of requirements comes from the municipality, from the building departments. And although we say, hey, well, let's try to bridge this gap and do something, there are often building departments that don't allow you to do that. So, for example, since we were talking about the roofs, there is a requirement that says if 25% or more of the roof needs repairs, the whole roof needs to be replaced. So even if we say, well, listen, we can find just enough to patch, but it's 30% of the roof, the building department might say, I'm sorry, but that's not good enough. We need 100% of the roof. So there are instances where unfortunately we don't have many options, but every time when there is a problem, we try to find it, and most of the engineers in this industry do try to find an option to assist the association. Now, I think it's very important to say, and I think it goes without even saying, but after the Champlain Tower South, there is really no leniency from any municipality when it comes to necessary repairs. And on the engineering side, nobody wants to buy the liability for anything that is not done, let's call it 100%, whether that's a repair or a replacement or whatever needs to happen. So there is a pressure put on professionals as well, because at the end of the day, nobody likes their name in the newspapers for things like that, or to be in any form or shape associated with a catastrophe that is Champlain Tower South. So we understand the type of a burden that that's going to put or is already putting on the associations when it comes to them finding a professionals to assist on these projects. But that's something that unfortunately is I don't want to say unfortunately, fortunately I have to say, because the goal that we all have, even at this table here today, is to not allow that the Champlain Tower happens. The unfortunate part was most related to potential financial impact that this is going to have on people living in the buildings. But truth to be told, especially in South Florida, I think that we have played with that very narrow, thin line, convenience versus safety, and can we save here by doing something else and different, that I don't think we have that luxury. We never had it, but now for a fact, we definitely don't have that luxury anymore, and we have no choice but to do what is right. How difficult to do what is right and how expensive that's gonna be, and we are about to find out. I think we are already seeing some of that, but it's only gonna get, in my opinion, more and more challenging.
It's tough, obviously, though, because what comes first, right? If the building, the municipalities are saying we're going to shut you down if you don't do this, but you can't because you either don't have the financing or it's not available. It's like, what comes first? So we're kind of in that phase now where I guess we'll see what happens, but it's definitely uncharted territory. Doug,
Well, Regan, you bring up a good point, and I wanted to mention that with the failure of the recent legislature session to pass any statewide, building safety legislation, and as we've started to see even before this, municipalities are going to be the ones that haven't already are going to start to pass their own regulations. So one of the things as managing agents and your management team has to be cognizant of is what is required from your municipality, where the city of Miami Beach may have a different reg than Miami-Dade or Palm Beach County or the municipalities within the counties. So I think that's one thing that's going to come to a little and maybe cause a little bit of confusion, is exactly what requirements are there. But I also think that one of the things that is so important, and Sinisa and I have talked about this a lot, is the preventative maintenance, is the making sure boards do their maintenance, maintain their buildings. And Lorenzo, one of the things I've always counseled our clients, and it dovetails into insurance, is there's language in every insurance policy that says if a building fails to maintain, and that can cause severe repercussions when you have a potential loss where the building failed to maintain something, and that particular carrier is going to try and deny coverage.
That's correct. That's why it's always good to make sure you dot your I's and cross your T's. And documentation is key in this instance to make sure that you're showing that you're being as proactive as possible. This is why the minutes are being requested, right? They want to make sure that you're not deferring any maintenance that can cause an issue. And if there is a claim and they find a way to get out of it, they may very well try to take that route. So you want to make sure that you're doing what's best for the association and staying on top of it. There's no other word to say it than just be as proactive as possible.
And if I may just tie into what Doug and Lorenzo said, when it comes to insurance, but overall good practices, the topic of today's conversation is heat season, but that heat season is tied into the hurricane season and the damages that can be the consequence of the both, is the good maintenance of your property, proper inspections, proper repairs, definitely ensure that you have most ammunition out there available to fight a claim in the event of any damages. If you have your annual roof maintenance program and inspection report done, if you have records of your maintenance of the cooling tower, maintenance of the building, of the mechanical systems, of anything on your property, and you are staying on top of that, not just that your property is going to be functioning all the time properly, and you have no problems with any type of a city or state requirements, but also in the event of a hurricane or any type of a damage, you are going to have all necessary documentation to put a proper claim to your insurance company and say, hey, here are all the records, here's everything that we've done. So it's clearly not the consequence of us not doing the right thing. This is a legit case of whatever the claim is.
And one of the things too, and people always bring up, and Sinisa, you brought up a good point. And one of the things is also, it's not just the association or the board that needs to maintain. It's also the unit owners. One of the things that we run into quite frequently in seeing when we do 40 and 50-year certs is and this is always a subject that everybody runs with down in South Florida, is balconies and terraces. And one of the things that we find is that a building and association also has to make sure that their unit owners are maintaining certain elements. And for instance, and I use balconies as an example, a lot of times people will have put tile on balconies or some sort of covering over the structural slab. And if that's not maintained, that can lead to structural damage of that slab and certain other structural elements in the building. So knowing what your conditions of your balconies, even though it's not something that the association necessarily is responsible for from that surface, but it's making sure that you do inspections, that you look at these surfaces and you notify residents if they're failure to maintain. And by that, I mean, they don't maintain the grout, they don't maintain broken tiles, rail posts, that type of thing. So that's something where it's a resident responsibility, but it also impacts the association.
Thank you, Doug. We have a question, Avi, this one's for you. Obviously, with everything we're talking about and the intricacies of this process of getting up to code and safety and whatnot, the question that came through, well, what tools are available to associations to establish an emergency plan? I mean, if you need funds, to get everything done that Tanisha was talking about, that Doug was talking about, what tools do they have as a board to get it done?
Sure. So the first tool is fully fund your reserves. Don't partially fund them. Don't waive them. Doug's smiling and laughing. A lot of associations or boards want to, get the members to vote to waive the reserves or partially fund them so they can artificially keep everybody's assessments low. And I say artificially because at some point those components are going to need to be replaced, whether it's the roof, whether you need to repaint, whether you need to resurface the parking lot, do something, work with the pool, the balconies, like Doug was talking about. All of these things are issues that are going to come due at some time. And so that's the first thing that you can go into doing. Second thing is engaging in professionals, making sure that you're keeping up to date with what's going on as far as the structural integrity of your building and the components. The third thing is keeping in touch with your friendly lawyer. If your association has an attorney, keeping up to date on the changes in laws. I do want to circle back, and it's a good time to talk about what Doug was talking about with the statutes, that nothing was passed this year, which frankly, with some of the things that were on the table, it's a good thing that they weren't, in my opinion. But there were other things that were on the table that I thought would have been good changes. And a lot of them had to do with, there were some proposals that were going to do away with an association's ability to waive reserves. It was just going to be, you have to fund reserves. Some people saw it as a good thing, some people saw it as a bad thing, but there were a lot of proposals that it wasn't throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but a lot of people thought that there was just a knee-jerk reaction with what happened in Surfside. And I'm surprised nothing came out. Frankly, I thought there would at least be something, but I'm sure something will come out next year to address what happened as time goes on, and some more time is spent going into that. But I can tell you that Miami-Dade County is going through a full revamp of their 40, 50-year recertification process. They're drastically reducing the number of years, and it's going to go in effect relatively immediately. And so it's going to have an immediate effect on associations, and they're going to have to deal with the financial consequences of the building having to go through those recertification process and bringing those components up to par.
I'm sorry, I mentioned something that is I am also very surprised that nothing has come out of that legislation. And as an engineer, for me, the critical part was the time frame of inspections and things like that. I wouldn't go into financial or legal aspects of any of those proposed legislation. But Doug, I think, mentioned cities are already changing and have already changed. Miami-Dade is changing. City of Miami already changed and revamped the 40-year process, at least from a perspective of things to be looked at and things to be considered. Boca Raton has also implemented several changes and kind of created their own 30-year inspection protocol that, we had 40, they had 30-year. City of Highland Beach put a 25-year inspection requirement on their properties. So majority of counties are going through this process and are going to pass some level of requirements for some type of inspections. But somebody mentioned, there was a question online, somebody mentioned what is the calendar of maintenance and what should we do? Well, first and foremost, management company that, like ACAM is somebody that can create that kind of a maintenance program for you to follow. And Avi said reserves. I couldn't agree more. As an engineer, I think that having reserves is a critical component of proper maintenance of the building, simply because it lays out a master plan on how do you maintain your property. It gives you an idea, okay, when do I need to replace a cooling tower, such and such? When do I need to replace a fire pump? When do I need to replace a generator? When do I need to do concrete restoration, painting, and how often? All of those things are in the reserve study. So even if you, I don't know if that's even possible legally, but even if you don't fund the reserves, I still think you should have the reserves as a plan, as a guideline, as what to do. How and when are certain components of your building going to be in need for you to address them? And that definitely helps with financial planning and everything else. Again, whether you're going to do it through reserves or special assessments, I've heard pros and cons for both. So I don't want to, go in there. I'm just an engineer.
But one of the things, Sinisa, that you brought up, which is paramount, and we talk to our clients and potential clients all the time, is, and you're right, there's two components to the reserve. There's the financial aspect of it, and then there's the physical plant aspect. And associations need to have current reserve studies. A lot of times we'll walk into a potential and we'll see, when did you last do your reserve study? Well, we did it about 10 years ago. Well, a lot happens in 10 years, a lot happens to equipment. So you want to have an updated reserve study, as Sinisa said. You want to develop a plan. And that's the big thing, because once you develop the plan, then you go into how do you finance it. And unfortunately, with building maintenance, if you put something off, it never gets cheaper. So what costs $1 now, if you put it off for 5 years, is going to be $10. So you really have to look at, yes, and I understand there are certain financial constraints associations have, but kicking the can down the road is obviously going to be more expensive in the long run. And also, again, with the maintenance, and as someone I think I saw in the questions, it really is tailored to an individual building, because each individual building will have different physical plant equipment, MEP equipment, certain characteristics, and it really is developed by that. And it also, one of the things too, is to make sure that your equipment, depending upon the type of equipment, has service contracts on it. There are certain things that need service contracts, for instance, fire pumps, fire suppression systems, elevators, things such as that. And it isn't just getting the contract, it's making sure the contract covers what it should, and also that the contractor is performing under those contracts. So preventative maintenance is a big job as part of our management team. It's something we always look carefully at. And it's just something that it all ties in, as I think we've heard today, is it ties in not only physical plant, but legal and insurance as well. And with recent developments, the repercussions, if one portion of that synergy fails, can lead to catastrophic events.
Thank you, Doug. Avi, one of the things Doug mentioned, and there's a question, I just want to clear it out. Every building is different, and I should have mentioned this at the beginning. Obviously, your building is different. So with regards to your specific situation, obviously check in with your professionals. We're here as well to answer your questions. John, I see there's a question. It's very specific to your building. So I'm actually going to forward that to Avi, and he'll reach out to you directly, just because it's very specific to your building. Sorry, Avi, go ahead. I know you had a thought on Doug's.
Yeah, no, the last thing I was going to mention, because it's been spoken about, of the preventive maintenance. One thing that's an option for associations is to make a transition from straight line reserves to pooled reserves. Some people don't like it, some people do, but in straight line reserves, you cannot use any of the items that are earmarked, whatever that money is in that earmarked item, whether it's roof or what have you, or any other item, unless the membership votes on the use of that money for a different purpose. When you're in pooled reserves, the board can make the decision to use the money that's in the pooled reserves, it's in the big bucket, for any reason that's of one of those reserved items. So if there's money for the roof, there's money for the painting, and there's money for the resurfacing, and the roof goes and the roof needs a $2 million job, and there's only $400,000 in the roof line item, but there's another $600,000 sitting in the reserves in total. You can borrow from that 600, put it in with that 400, you have $1 million, get a loan for the missing $1 million that you need to finish that roof project. And then you can also, from that point going forward, reallocate money coming in and redo the budget. So you're then replenishing the budget money that you took, or the reserve money, excuse me, that you took for that one particular line item. And it just gives you that flexibility in the event of a sudden casualty. Sometimes it's to pay, I'm pointing to Lorenzo, sometimes it's to pay the insurance premium in order to get your project funded, because if there's a casualty event at the association, 20%, right?
Yep.
20%, see, I knew something. So you have to pay that 20% threshold. 20% doesn't sound like much if you're talking about 10 grand. But if you're talking about a $4 million policy, that's obviously a lot of money. And so there's a way where you can use the money fungibly, that's the right word, and be able to allocate the money in a different way to help pay for that casualty event.
Thank you, Avi. Well, we're coming to the end now. I apologize. We're not going to be able to get to the last couple of questions. We'll answer them after. I'd like to now, if everyone, all the panelists would like to just give a closing statement. Shanisha, we'll start with you.
Sure. Whether it's the discussion, again, the heat season, the hurricane season, or overall maintenance of the buildings, if anybody on this webinar can take one thing from at least from me, and that is there is no substitution for proper and timely maintenance. If you enforce that on your property, a proper and timely maintenance, you shouldn't be worried about special assessment. You shouldn't be worried about any city or state imposed inspections or requirements. You're going to pass all of those with flying colors, because all of those are meant and written in such a way to make sure that you're maintaining the property. None of the requirements, or vast majority of the requirements today that are in place, are not meant to bring your building up to code. They're actually meant just to make sure that your building, the way it was built, maintains and be safe for its present use and occupancy. So as long as you maintain your property, as long as you keep your property proper, you won't have anything to worry about.
Thank you so much. Avi?
Sure, thank you. I'd like to talk about something that I talk about, close with something that I talk about when I'm teaching board certification classes, and that's your fiduciary duty that you owe, for any board members, that you owe to the association. Because of what happened in Surfside, the fiduciary duty is going to be looked at much differently when it comes to the repair, maintenance, and replacement obligations of the association on your watch as a board member. Like Sanosa was saying, keep the conservative approach. We recommend it. Keep your reserves fully funded as much as possible. And you will have a building that will be healthy, will pass the inspections, and not have any issues with government municipalities, government agencies.
Thank you, Avi. Lorenzo?
Yeah, just to close up, I've said this time and time throughout this webinar, make sure you're being proactive. and not just with maintenance. As you're approaching your insurance renewal, make sure you get your agent involved and budget accordingly. I know that's something that's really hard to pinpoint how the insurance market is trending right now, but make sure you get your insurance professionals involved so that they can help you gauge more or less where this market is going, because we're in for a rough ride for quite some time.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Doug?
Sure. I just wanted to say, we discussed in the beginning, heat season. Well, preventative maintenance doesn't go by season. Preventative maintenance is 365 days a year. And as Sinisa said, that's the best thing you could do for your association. That, and listen to your professionals in the insurance world, in the legal world, in the engineering world, and really take into account what they're recommending and what they're advising, because it has just become so much more important to bring everybody together to work with your association so that, we don't have another tragedy like Surfside, and that you continue to maintain your building so you don't have to look at events possibly that would happen negatively and affect your property.
Thank you, Doug. And from my side, I would just say everything spoken about today, a year ago, maybe this would all be best practice, but now it's a necessity. As everyone has explained, everything is a synergy together, and if one aspect is off, the engineering, the legal, the insurance, you're going to lose your investment in your home. So please speak to your professionals and make sure that you're being proactive in every manner possible. With that, thank you so much. Our information has been up. Everyone's email address is on the screen. Please feel free to reach out to us anytime, and thank you so much.